Hello, Gobs, and welcome to a new series. That's right, I'm starting, well, it's not that new. This falls in line with TTRPG system reviews, but this is Gobs at a glance. Whenever I get a new TTRPG in my possession, or I get one recommended to you guys from the comments, which there was a couple I was going to go over, but since then people have deleted those comments, so I can't really check it out anymore. Or if I see a recommendation on like TikTok or something, because I see people recommend like, hey, if you want this combat system, go check out this system. So this is my Gobs at a Glance series, where I'm going to go and do like a skimming, a light read. I mean, I'm not going to read the book from front to back entirely, but I'm going to go check it out. I'm going to give a little bit information about it and see how it might fall in line with my playgroup and how I might like it. This is a good way to tell you guys about systems that I am trying out, coming across, and then I might, after I play them with my group, do a system review on them later, which I haven't done that in like forever. But this is just to get a quick glance at a TTRPG and try to judge it from that way. Of course, a TTRPG will sometimes read better than it plays. That can always be the case. And sometimes it reads bad and then you play it and you're like, wow, this actually isn't that bad. So that can always be the case. You know, don't judge a book by its cover. But if the cover isn't interesting enough for me to pick it up, then you can in fact judge a book by its cover. So this is just my at a glance. If you don't know who I am the Goblin King. I do RPG and TTRPG. I do all sorts of RPG stuff. If you want to see more content, check out my channel trailer. I have social media down in the description, and let's just get this new series on the way. Now, recently, I've acquired 2 TTRPGs. The first one, I've been waiting over a year, and I had to message the people directly. It was at the warehouse, they just hadn't sent it out for some reason, and then I got it within a couple days, and then the other one is a PDF that I bought online. So you might not see a lot of the first one, but you'll definitely see a lot of the PDF one, but I'm going to try to keep these extremely light, so you're just going to see some random gameplay of whatever. But the first TTRPG, the one I've been waiting over a year, that I bought because I like Exosuits, and I think it's Japanese and it's translated over. But anyways, the first system is called Convictor Drive, Armored by Grief. Now, since this is at a glance, I'm not going to go too deep into it, but as I said, in this TTRPG, the players will become employees of the company Drive, a private security company stationed out in the Yokohama zone, an ever technologically developing advanced zone of Japan. It doesn't fall in line with the prefectures, it's like its own thing in this universe. What happens here is that they're testing all sorts of technology, mainly exosuits, such as the Convictor Drive. Outside of the Yokohama zones, there's not too many exosuits besides like private security companies and industrial work sites. And these are electricity operated, so you have to like keep them plugged in, or they have really large battery packs. This is what sets Convictor Drives. Well, Convictor Drives the state of the exosuit, but the suit itself that the player characters will get is called a Convictor. So the Convictor is powered by the ring system. In order to use the ring system, a person has to have a scar upon the heart. They have to have some sort of trauma. They lock into the trauma, it powers up the suit to its max power, because you can use it in safe and standby mode, but if you want to do combat with it, you have to power it up. So each player will design 2 secret info things. The first one being a keyword that they say that is important to them, that triggers the trauma that they had. And then the second one being that whenever they activate their special move of their Convictor, which is called the Convictor Drive, which you have to drop to 0 HP or less in order to activate, you design a As I Saw It. So whenever you're designing your character and laying out their loss or their trauma, you have one section where you describe it from like another person, such as like reading a news report. You know, you're not going to get the full details. It's like, this person was killed in a car crash. And then you write a as I saw it, where it's a first-hand description. So whenever you activate Convector Drive, it outputs this image, and you have to read out as I saw it to the other players, because your player character has to live through the trauma again in order to activate their final move. So if you can't tell, this game is very dramatic, at least when it comes to that aspect. They said it's supposed to replicate Japanese superhero shows like, I think, Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, Power Rangers, which is just Super Sentai, but you know, I'm running out of examples, but those are the biggest ones. And it's not, those are more like action-packed, which it's supposed to be like cool and action-packed at the same time, because they say you can usually do rule cool a lot. Like for one of the investigations, if the player says, oh, my character drives in on a bike, and they don't own a bike, you're supposed to just like, oh yeah, the company lets you borrow a bike, or you bought a bike beforehand, and you let them drive in on a bike because it's cool, which is true for a lot of stuff. Not to get mechanically advantage, mind you, but just for like roleplay reasons, you can do a lot of cool stuff. Now, let's talk about how combat works at a glance. Now, whenever a player designs a convictor, they get to pick from one of 4 types. Each type has a head, chest, leg, arm, and weapon type. There's like 3 parts for each of the body pieces, and then for the weapons, there's like 6 weapons. You can only take so many with you. You can make them lighter by doing sessions. I'm trying not to get too deep into it. For each part of the body, you pick one. You can mix and match parts. You can buy more parts later. So eventually you can have all the parts, but you have to decide which one you're taking on a mission. So I don't think you get access to every single part at a moment. Now, since this plays into combat, it plays on a 9x9 grid. The first row on the bottom is ground. The second row is mid-air ground, I think it's called, or the mid-air space, which is basically on top of light poles, on top of rooftops. And then you have high air ground. You have to have some type of movement in order to move from ground to mid-air. And then if you move to high air ground without any flying, then you start to fall your next turn. But you can do it without equipment, and it's called a jump. Why would you want to do this? Because if you fall, you take damage. Well, whenever you jump up, you get a height advantage on anybody beneath you. So I guess if you're a long range without any flight system, you can do a jump, snipe someone on the ground level, do a bunch of extra damage, and then fall. Now, this is how combat will play out. Each player has a set of reserves that whenever you pick your armor, so heavier armor or armor that would protect you more gives you less reserves, while less defensive armor gives you more reserves usually. And then basically, whenever you're in combat, you go through the turns, you're eating up your reserves. It starts with the player with the highest. Enemies don't have reserves. They have a movement. They're like, go after player with 10 reserves, or player with 4 reserves, or something like that. So enemies can sometimes take extra turns, but that's how enemies get into the initiative. And then basically, it just goes until all the players drop to 0 reserve. Then a new cycle starts, and then everyone refills the reserves, and you go again. Now, if you skip your turn, your reserves drop to the next person's lowest reserve. So if there's someone like with 6 reserves, and then you have 12, and you're like, I don't want to do anything, your reserves drop to 6 as well. Now, combat's very simple. You get a move, and then an attack. You can move to any square on the board. Again, you have to have the right equipment to get to high air. But you can only move 1 square unless something tells you otherwise. That's always true. And then, of course, you can make 1 attack. And that's it. This system is it's a 1d10 system. Or not 1d10, it's xd10. Players can use up to 5, and then the DM, or the GM, the episode master, whatever you want to call them, they can use up to 10 dice, and sometimes even more. But players can also go above this 5 dice limit, so you need a lot of d10s on hand. Now, outside of combat, let's talk about the roleplay. This plays out like an investigation and heavily relies on missions. It's not free-form exploration, kind of like D&D is. You know, you're not presented with an area, and it's like, okay, go find what to do. The GM will make a commanding officer, which is, you build them exactly like a player, but they don't get a convictor. So they have some type of trauma along them. They just don't get a flash ward. It can be a fun like moment later learning what your commanding officer went through. But yeah, you get to make a CO. It reminded me of Ryutama, but Ryutama, the dragons and that the DM makes, they get like special abilities and stuff based on the dragon or what you select. I thought it was going to be like that, but not really. You just get a CO, and that's it. They're just a player without a convictor. But that's still pretty cool. I like when these systems have a way for the GM to make a character that isn't just a GM NPC. You actually get a character that watches over the players in some fashion. I like when TTRPGs have that kind of like GM create your own character in the system. Hey, if you guys know any system that's like that, and I mean, you can always make a GM NPC and just throw it into the party, but I want to see more systems where they have a character creation for the DM. So if you guys know any more systems like that, let me know. That'd be so cool. And one day I'll go over Ryutama so you guys can have a better understanding. But I just think that's so fun. It lets you get more in with the players. Anyways, back to Convictor Drive. In Convictor Drive, the GM will usually make these cards, investigation cards and intel cards. You get an intel card to start. The intel card will tell you an area in the Yokohama zone, and it's like, here, there's somebody being kidnapped. So you have to go to that zone, and then you have to clear it using your work skills. There's 6 work skills. I forgot the name of each one, but it's like there's brawling, agility, knowledge, attitude, mechatronics, and suppression. And those are the 6 work skills that you'll use outside of combat. Remember, combat's just move and attack. So you get the intel card. The intel card's like, there's somebody being kidnapped. Go there, take care of the kidnaps. You clear the intel card, you'll flip an investigation card. The investigation card will have another area that you have to go and make a check. And then that will flip another investigation card. And then once you have flipped all the investigation cards, or I think there's like one final one, you get to fight the big bad for that episode, which is the climax phase. And that's how Convictor Drive plays outside of combat. Of course, you don't have to follow the system. You can do freeform exploration if you want. That's just how they have it in the book. Again, you can always homebrew your own way of playing these games. Now, moving into my final thoughts, let's talk about some gripes. I like how the missions play out. I like the idea of designing intel and investigation cards. I like the combat. I like all the special effects the parts gets. I like how you can design the enemies in this. But there are 2 things that I can see a problem with. The first one being, there's not too much player options. I like a bit of freeform. I like a bit of customizability when it comes to player characters. I like when a system lets you do a whole bunch, like Fabula Ultima, Pathfinder 2e, even D&D 5e or 1, whatever you want to call it. You can throw that in there. That gives you so much options for your players. But in this, you only have the 4 suits, and each one only has a max amount of parts. Eventually, you can get every suit, you can get every weapon, all for one character. Now, for some groups, this isn't that big of a deal. They can either just homebrew new one, or they're okay with playing the same thing over and over. But I like some new stuff added. You know, I'm not prone to playing the same thing over and over. I just feel like I favor player customizability very heavily. I like the idea of being able to make a ton of different characters for one system. But for this one, it's kind of like you build your pilot, your Exosuit pilot, and then you build like the same convictor over and over. Like, oh, what if I tried this mishmash of parts? Like I said, if you level up the characters enough, you'll be able to just get every part, and you'll be able to carry every weapon. Like, at least in Lancer, you have 10 license levels. There's like 8 mechs for like 6 companies. I'm getting that number horrifically wrong, but each mech has like 3 licenses you have to go through. And since you can only get up to 10 licenses, and if you don't want to do that, you can reset your license levels on a pilot and buy through all the licenses again if you want to keep the pilot but make something else. So Lancer has that going for it. Fabula Ultima has a slew of abilities that you can customize over. They also have expansions, which that's always a fair thing. I mean, expansions to go through. Lancer and Fabula Ultima both have a bunch of expansions. Now with something like Ryutama, that's more on the role-playing side, which you can do it in this one, okay? Because Ryutama doesn't have a slew of stuff that you can pick from, but the story you can make with it, I guess I'm too limited in my head of the story you can make with it. Because you can set it outside the Yokohama zone. It doesn't tell you that in the book, but again, you don't have to go by the book. You always just make your entire homebrew place outside of the Yokohama zone to pilot these exosuits. So there's that for your creative freedom. I'm just saying, I just wish there was a little bit more that the players could customize, in my opinion. Just a little bit more. I mean, it's not the biggest, it's not a deal breaker. The deal breaker is it's probably not for my group, but I'll get more into that later. Let's talk about the second gripe. After you activate your Convictor Drive and you tell everybody what you saw or how, I guess you're not telling them because it flashes to their suits, but you have to read your as I saw it to everybody out loud. After that first time, what about the next couple times that you do it? Because the book tells you that you're supposed to design the climax phase where you're fighting the boss in order to trigger Convictor Drive. You know, they say it's okay to knock out a couple players in order for them to trigger their Convictor Drive. That's what you're aiming for. They said don't go easy on them. But after that first time, doesn't it kind of like, oh, this is the 5th time you're showing me your dead wife this week or this campaign or whatever? Doesn't it get a bit like trite? Because it's like, it's good for like the first 4 times between each of the players or 3 players. It's good for that time, but then every time after, it's kind of like they already know. That's supposed to be like the big reveal of the traumatic past that character had. But like I said, after that first time, unless I didn't read in the book that it changes after, it says they can develop trauma during a mission. Because for the investigation, you put how many players you want to go on that investigation. Yes, you can split it because you wouldn't want your big hulking tank guy to go and try to do a stealth mission. You would want your little lighter exosuits to go do that. So you can split up the party and have them, this team does this investigation, this team clears this intel, and you can work it like that. So they could be alone and develop their trauma from something they see. But then it's like, I mean, that still works. But then if they develop it when someone else is there, then it's like, okay, they kind of already know it. Maybe I'm just not that big of a role player in my head. Which brings me to why I don't think this is going to turn out for my group. Sorry, I know I've had to make characters. We are still going to play a session. I'm still going to design a session. I just don't think it's going to be a big fit for my group because this is supposed to be, the cool side will work very well. It's the traumatic side that's not going to work very well. I don't know if you know my friends, but we're not exactly the most dramatic of people. This is good for people who love, I guess, like theater and drama. I know one of my players loves drama, and then the other 2 aren't really big on the drama side. They're more on the cool fight stuff, smart roleplay, I guess, like puzzles and stuff, kind of roleplay outside of combat, but they're not really dramatic. They can take stuff seriously, but it's kind of like, it's kind of awkward at the moment we are. And like I said, just after that first time you exposed your Convictor Drive, your traumatic past to everyone, I feel like it just gets old, in my opinion. So I'm not sure what to do about that. But like I said, this is just at a glance. I know I said I wouldn't explain it, and then I just went ahead and explained it in detail. I might cut some of it out because you really don't need to know how the entire system plays, honestly. This is just my opinion to let you guys go and maybe grab a book or look at a short description on it on the website. Now, this is by Lion Wings Publishing. At least this is who it's published by. I don't know who designed it. Sorry. You can go to their website and check out more about Convictor Drive, Armored by Grief. In my opinion, this is probably not going to be a good fit for our group. Unlike this next TTRPG, I hope it's a good fit. I really like it, and it only cost $15 at the time of designing this. Not sponsored, okay? Not sponsored. I just think it's a really, really good system, at least reading it. And that system is Dawn. It's also not published by Lion's Wing Publishing. They are helping print physical books for next year in 2026. Hopefully this video gets out before then. Now, Dawn is supposed to replicate shonen anime, fighting anime. You can even do isekai, which there's sometimes a lot of fighting in isekai as well. I mean, not every isekai, but I say a good bit of isekai have fight. Is what Dawn is trying to replicate. In Dawn, where do you even begin? There's so much customizability in Dawn compared to a lot of other systems I played. Let's just start at what you get to do whenever you design a character for Dawn. There are two sides. You have unstructured role-playing, and then you have structured combat. Now, of course, you can do combat outside of unstructured role-playing. The book even says that if you want to do your ability, which you get a special ability, kind of like in JoJo, the stands have special abilities. You kind of get to do something similar to that. I mean, a lot of shonen have abilities like that, but you get to go and design your own ability following this table, which you'll see later on. But anyways, you can't use your ability during combat, or you can at least flavor your techniques that you get using the ability that you got. You can flavor it, but you're not truly ever going to use your ability in combat unless you duel someone during combat and then you take them out of structured combat into unstructured roleplay. Then you can use your ability against them willy-nilly, but then they can also use their ability against you. So you have your unstructured roleplay side. Whenever you're designing this, you'll make skills that you'll also use in combat, but you have 4 attributes: body, talent, spirit, mind. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory, but body, strength, talents, dexterity/ability. Body determines your HP, talent determines your speed. Then you have spirit, which is using the magic of the system, whether it be magic, or like energy, or whatever ability system that the episode or the narrator, as it's called in Dawn, makes. Spirit's the control over that, the understanding of that. And then mind is the non-spirit stuff, which is just like actual knowledge of the world. Spirit also helps focus, which there's a lot of resource tracking. Not a lot of resource tracking, but there's a lot of what they call meta currency in this. If you play other TTRPGs, but this is what Dawn calls its meta currency. There's focus, influence points. You can also get stress, wounds. There's also techniques, which are just abilities that the characters can have. Not ability. I shouldn't say ability. They're just called techniques that the characters can get that replaces their focus with something else. There's all sorts of meta currencies that you can get. So if you, and I still, even then, it doesn't feel like you're really tracking too much, but there are tons and tons of techniques that you'll have to get. But we're talking about unstructured roleplay. So you have the attributes that you'll use to make rolls. Each attribute has 4 skills that you can put skill points into or character ranks into when you make your character, because you get 8 starting out. So you spend at least 4 into skills, and then you can use the other 4 for either more skills or you can use an ability. Here's what the ability table looks like. It goes, you can verb, noun, as long as I condition. Now, in this table, you can see all the stuff that you can do. For example, my character, or at least 2 of my characters, one says you can toughen your body, and if you look at the bottom of the table, since I use your body, I don't need any condition. So I can just say you can toughen your body. My other character, it says I can empower my vision. And again, since I use a body in the category, this power is fairly cheap. But I can go ahead and tag on a condition as long as it doesn't cost anything. And sometimes the condition can even make it cost less, as you can see on the table. So for him, I want him to stand still and like be able to like investigate or like zoom in and enhance with his eyes. But the drawback is he has to stand still. So I can empower my vision as long as I stand still, is his ability. My other friend, he's making, you can create illusions, so create illusions as long as they don't get spotted, and that's their ability. With that, you can kind of see the lots of abilities you can make. Of course, the narrator, who's ever telling the story, can focus in, hone in, they can block out certain nouns, they can add nouns, verbs, whatever. You're supposed to not only be access to this table, but this table creates a large variety of powers that you can base everything off of. But you can also go in and add other words to it as well. so you don't have to be limited to what's on the table unless the narrator says so. So I thought that was pretty cool. And when it comes down to the abilities, you could use them during roleplay. Of course, you have to run it by your narrator, because you can't just say, I can obliterate Earth as long as I touch it. Like, yeah, obviously your narrator shouldn't allow that. So you have to sit down with your narrator and discuss the power and how it works in the system. It can be like unique, kind of like in, I think they have it listed like My Hero Academia. They have unique quirks for their powers. And then like JoJo, each stand has a unique ability. Or it could be abilities that everybody can get that they have to train, such as being able to fly in like Dragon Ball, or all the moves in Dragon Balls like Kaioken and Kamehamehas and whatever else. You know, you just have to put in the training and you get the ability. That is defined by the narrator, which I think is pretty cool. And then lastly, before you move into structured combat, you have your outlooks. There are 10 outlooks. Each one has boons that you can use during role plays, and sometimes sometimes you can use them during combat. So that's just for unstructured roleplay. You get to do all of that. For structured combat, you get to pick from 6 archetypes. I think it's 6. I don't know. There's 6 to 8 archetypes that you get to pick from, and then your character can only have 1 primary, 2 secondary, so you can only pick from 3 archetypes of abilities. You start off with 5 techniques, and then each technique, I say ability, not abilities, but each technique has 3 levels. And of course you have to dump in an amount of ranks to get that level. So you have to dump in 3 ranks if you want to fully level up a technique to its max. But you can get up to 5 from 3 different classes. Or you could just grab like a level 3 and a level 2. That works fine. I think it's generally better to get like 1 level 2 and like 3 level 1s to kind of make this diverse character. But again, completely up to you. There's just a lot of customizability. That's it for structured combat. Of course, you get health, speed, focus. And usually the board that you move on 7 by 7, there's all sorts of actions you can do during combat. You get action points. So you get 3 action points, which reminded me of Pathfinder 2e, and then that you get, what is it called in 2e? You get 3 actions. Yeah, you get 3 actions in Pathfinder 2e as well. So that's what it reminded me of. And you can't do the same action twice unless you've done an action as a swift action. So you can attack using skirmish, but you can't do skirmish again unless a technique gives you skirmish as a swift action. So then you can do skirmish, and then whatever else your other AP you want to spend on probably to move. So structured combat is pretty cool. They say combat can take a while, not too long I'd imagine, but it can take a long time, especially since the characters and enemies can have all these techniques that they can use, and I think the narrator can design special moves for the enemies to use. And that, my gobs, is Dawn. Hopefully that was faster than Convictor Drive. Of course, whenever you're designing your character, they ask you a bunch of story questions. They even tell you that you should tie everything in together. Just don't pick stuff willy-nilly. Like, if you have an ice guy, just don't get like, oh, he has a gun, by the way. You have to tie everything in together so it makes a coherent character. Like I said, they ask you questions for your background of your character, like what were they born in? What did they do before they started the adventure or the shonen, whatever. Before they started their, it would be an adventure, but they say like episodes, or no, they say chapters. So it'd be like before they started the main series, what did their character do? Do they know how to fight? Are they trained in fighting? How did they get their power? Is their power looked good upon? Is it seen as evil? Were they in a community? Were they exiled from a community? You'll have to answer all these questions. And then you have to tie your ability into it, and then you have to tie your techniques into it. Like I said, you can flavor your techniques. Like my dude that can toughen his body, I basically made it he can like turn his body into steel, and he's a very punch character, throw character. So whenever he throws his punches, he's gonna toughen up his fist before he makes impact, so he doesn't have to carry around any type of fist weapon, or he has to wear wraps or anything. He can just walk around in his normal everyday clothing and be okay. Like, again, that doesn't impact the mechanical side unless you're in structured roleplay, and then that's where it can get fun. Again, there's just so much fun stuff. Sorry, I hit the mic. But there's so much fun stuff you can do for both the players and the GMs. The GMs get to make really cool villains. If you see the character sheet, which I'll show you, there's all these bonds for NPCs that the GM gets to make, and they get to do stuff with those NPCs to the players. It's just so fun, and there's so much stuff to write on the character sheet. Like, you'll see these boxes, and it's like one box is to write your backstory, like how you got your outlook, or what outlook you decided upon, how you got your archetype, and you can write all the backstory you want in these boxes. And then you have a separate page for writing down your technique and boons. Oh, I think this is just a slam dunk of a system, and it's so cheap for a system too. And it's not that long. It's not that hard to understand. I mean, there's a couple I don't know, a couple rules that are kind of iffy that you have to read a couple times in order to understand. There's a lot of conditions and a lot of abilities, but once you start reading them, it becomes way easier. So I think this system is a slam dunk. I can't really even see anything negative about it, okay? I'm gonna be honest. Until I sit down and play it, I can't really see any problem with this system. I think this is a great fit for a group because my friend likes Dragon Ball, I like shonen like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. The other friend doesn't really watch that type of anime, but he still loves the ideas. He's the one who introduced me to the system, and he loves it. And then my other friend, he loves isekai anime, so you know, this just feels like it's gonna fit right at home in our games. I hope it plays as good as it reads. I really do. I really do like this system, and I suggest you guys go check it out. I think the author is on itch.io, so go check him out there. 15 bucks, you know, it's not that expensive, and I think it's worth it. You can read what it's about and all that before you buy it. So again, not sponsored. I just think it's a really cool system. And with that, with the two systems out of the way, that will conclude Gobs at a Glance. And if there's a system you want me to check out that you want to see on this channel, because this isn't only about me, this is about telling other people that there are more systems than the popular ones, than D&D. There's more than D&D out there, guys, okay? You don't only have to play D&D. There are cheaper books that you can read. There are free books that you can read, okay? D&D, Pathfinder 2e, as much as I love them, there are other systems out there that are so cool, and they all deserve love. So, if there's a system that you want others to tell about, then put it in the comments and use me, and then I'll give you my honest opinion, okay? I might be a bit easy on it, honestly. I don't think there's any truly bad systems except for that one, which I still yet to make a video on. Was it Another Land, Another Time, whatever? I feel like that name itself just carries evil with it. But yeah, I should do a video on that. A Gobs at a Glance, maybe even a system review. Maybe it's going to be its own standalone. But what do you guys think of these systems just from me explaining them? I know I cut some of the stuff out, so it might not make too much sense. But again, this is just at a glance. That's all it is. So if you watched the video this far, I hope you guys enjoyed, and thank you for watching. If you leave a comment for a system or anything, thank you for commenting. And that will do it. I'm out of here, keeping the intro light, hopefully. So, I hope you gobs have a lop of a day. May your systems be fun. That's all you need when it comes to TTRPG. As long as it's fun, play whatever.